24 years in front office in the NBA. So we have a lot of questions for you, Mr. David Griffin. Where do we start this? Okay, what are some of the biggest challenges that come to you as a general manager?
Well, I think now it's changed so much, just the amount of information that exists and that fans and everybody else have access to in terms of statistics and the amount of video there is. There's so much around the game that I think getting everybody, and we were just talking about this relative to a sixth grader, right? If you can focus on what really matters, make the main thing as an organization, you're radically ahead of the curve. It's very difficult to do in today's age.
And most times people think it's an easy job when you have the talent, but some people don't understand that the personalities play into that big role when you're trying to build the team.
Well, you know, in Cleveland, and the only reason I'm here probably is we had cheat code, right? And LeBron makes everything easier for everybody on the floor, but it also comes with a much brighter light, and it comes with a whole lot more expectation. And so you have to respond to the window you have when you have a player of that magnitude. James Harden, same thing in Houston. Russell Westbrook, same thing in OKC. You've got a finite window to win within, and so you need to do everything you can to capitalize on that period of time.
What's the game plan in landing a big-time free agent like LeBron, like James Harden, or even keeping your own and keeping them happy while they're within the organization?
Well, I think the thing for us was just to try to build something that everybody wanted to be part of. You know, you see it in Houston, and you alluded to what CP said about the joy that they have there. Golden State's a great example. Kevin was really attracted to the joy machine, the joy engine that is Golden State. And I think if you create a family-like atmosphere where you tell people what they need to hear, guys want to be part of what you're doing because it's authentic.
And with that authenticity, when you talk about that, is it come from the ownership? Is it GM? Is it your superstar? Is it kind of the collective of all the above?
Well, in a perfect world, it's all of it. And certainly everybody would be on the same page. But let's not kid ourselves. In Cleveland, people are going there because they want to play with LeBron James.
That's right.
And I think it's going to be the same throughout the league. Very often, players attract other great players. And in large part, it's because of USA Basketball. You know, I like to call that legalized tampering.
Yeah, that's because you didn't have that in the old days.
Yeah, they all come together now. And so if you're not in front of that, and if you're not really maximizing your opportunity with USA Basketball to touch those other great players, you're missing out on a big opportunity.
A big part of your job is trying to manage the cap, right? So when you bring in these free agents, they cost a lot. When you keep yours, they cost a lot. So you have to hit on the draft. How difficult is it to find the right guy during the draft?
Well, I think a lot of it depends on your system. I think a lot of it depends on your coaching staff. Do they play young players? What are they looking for those guys to do? The most important thing, though, is to keep in mind it's about the human beings first. If a guy is unwilling to fail, very often he won't. You want people that are made of the right stuff. And I think if you start there and guys are about the right things, all of the skill set, people can see that very clearly. So what's become a huge part of what we do is finding out who are they really on the human level.
For me, I think when the draft comes around, I always tease my GM friends that, it's easy for the top 5 picks because those guys are always highlighted throughout the season. It's finding those guys 25 to 27, like a Kyle Kuzma right now with the Lakers. How does that guy slip so far when you see him playing so well early in the season?
Yeah, and I think, again, the game itself is so different than college for some coaches still. You know, they're playing a game that's much different. They want their fours to be much more around the basket. They want them to be more defensive-oriented. Kyle may or may not have rebounded enough for his coach's liking, et cetera. In the league, we're going to try to take advantage of the mismatch situation you can put us in. So a spacing 4 with his ability to shoot is a much better fit right now in the NBA game, oddly enough, than he was in college for his particular situation. So you just have to be able to look in and see whether or not they can do something different. You know, Mike D'Antoni succeeded in turning Channing Frye into a 3-point shooter.
Okay, there you go.
And that had never been done before with Channing. So you have to look and see what you can uncover.
When you bring these rookies in and you bring in free agents, at what point do you realize, okay, maybe we made a mistake? And how quick of a turnaround for the trade deadline do you have to start preparing for making up for those mistakes?
Well, I don't know if relative to the draft you see it as much. In free agency you do, because sometimes you get the fit wrong. And I think what happens is when December 15th rolls around, those guys that you just signed, maybe the fit's not quite right, so you can try to find a way to fix that. Or what happens very often is a team thought they were going to be on one path and one arc trying to be successful within a certain timeline, and injuries happen and they have to reset the deck. So everything happens differently for each team.
When you're evaluating aging superstars, and to that great question where Atlanta tampered with Dwight Howard. They realized it didn't work, and they got rid of him right away and moved on. How do you, in your mind, say, you know what, I think this superstar still has something left. Let me give him a try in our organization. He fits our culture.
Yeah, and I think that's what you just said is really important. You need to know who you are and what your cultural identity is and whether or not they can fit within that. Obviously, in our situation in Cleveland with LeBron's going to make even bad situations good. So if you get it right, you can do something really special in that circumstance.
You mentioned LeBron. You had him, right? You also had Steve Nash. How is that different dealing with players of that caliber, superstars, as opposed to dealing with role players and making that all work?
Well, even within the superstar strata, they're different guys. So Steve Nash wins back-to-back MVP awards and is really more of an under-the-radar guy. And LeBron is iconic. He's the face of the NBA. So dealing with him is unlike dealing with anybody else. And fortunately, and Dennis, we were talking about this earlier, the only thing he cares about is winning championships. So you go to bed at night knowing the main thing is the main thing. And if we just focus on getting better, we're going to.
And this is questions for the fans where you see a lot of guys on the end of the bench and someone says, well, why is this old guy still on the bench? Why is he there? But people don't understand the value of a good locker room guy, a good teammate, a good guy on the bench, a good guy that keeps guys in the huddles in the middle of the game. Explain how big that is, too, as you're building the team.
Well, during our run throughout those 3 years we went to the finals, two of our most important players on our team were Kendrick Perkins, who we signed towards the end of the year, and he was really, really valuable to us in the playoffs in terms of what he did for us mindset-wise. Timo Mozgov has 28 and 13 in a finals game, and it's entirely because Perk put him in the right frame of mind. Dante Jones is a guy who is at the end of our bench and would challenge everyone from LeBron to the last man to bring it every single day. And he had a voice that people listened to. He was very authentic. And so, again, having those guys really can set the mood, can put you in the right frame of mind. And when the margin of error is as small as it is in playoff basketball, every little bit helps.
I'm going to say two words that may be bad words for GMs to hear, so maybe we might want to bleep these out for all the general managers out there, but the media, right? Because you're now here with us, but as a general manager, whether it's Twitter or it's an article or a source, how difficult is it managing that and all of the rumors that go around when you're just trying to keep the thing together?
I think it's only difficult if you're not dealing directly with guys in a very upfront way. If you're trusted and respected by your players and your coaching staff, they know that you're coming at this from the right place, and they understand what we're all about. It's very clear that we have a window to win, and if we can be better, yes, it's possible we're going to do something. And I'm going to be very clear with you on where that stands. So you don't ever have to read rumors. What you have to do is ignore the noise. And I think that's a really powerful thing. And young teams that are just kind of on the rise, I think it impacts them a little more than it probably impacted us in Cleveland. We had veterans who really understood it. And so when everything was very sensationalized about our team, guys understood what was real.
When you were in those war rooms, who were your trusted eyes? Because you have scouts on the West Coast, you have scouts for college, you have scouts for overseas, but now you're trying to make that tough decision. We're going to draft this guy or we're going to make that big trade. Who is normally your trusted eyes to help you make that final decision?
Well, you know, it was great. We had a really deep front office in Cleveland, and Trent Redden, who's now the assistant general manager with the Clippers, Kobe Altman, who took over the organization in Cleveland, those guys were really an integral part of what we did. We had David Henderson on the ground, former Duke player, former pro in Europe. Chico Averbach, a guy in Europe who was great at getting information. And the one common theme with all of those guys, Brandon Weems, who had been a great young assistant coach in college and was having a really big impact on things. What they all share is the ability to get information and to communicate. And we need to know who a player really is. So the people you trust the most are the guys who can tell you something you didn't know before. Because I think most everybody can watch a lot of talented players and know who's talented. It's knowing, do they fit who we are and who we want to be.
Griff, you're helping us to understand a lot of the ins and outs about putting together a team. It seems to be working pretty well for the Houston Rockets. Hey, players only. So, Griff, you and I, we're not included in this on Tuesday night. But 3D
Cleveland, I see you soon, Cleveland. I see you again, baby.
Miami and Cleveland.